there's a reason that after a head injury, they tell you to rest, because bringing an area back online before the vasculature that supplies it has recovered can actually create cell death. Welcome to a little episode of Really Bad Art. You've got a blood vessel. Now I'm going to draw a kink in the hose. The kink in the hose is ischemia. Now it's not just a kink in the blood vessel, but it's a decreased flow dynamic. So you have a fairly good flow coming, and you've got a smaller flow on this side because a kink in the hose. Again, ischemia. Now, let's say we put a little demand for function here, just a little request for function. The brain regulates its own blood supply. It'll try to open this up. But if you create more demand than this narrowed supply line can supply, if we make a big demand and it can't supply it, what happens? Well, your PO2 drops. And when the PO2 drops, the perfusion pressure of oxygen, you have hypoxia. Hypoxia creates edema. Edema is swelling. Swelling creates pressure. It's going to make the post-traumatic ischemia worse. You can actually reach a closure pressure here and anoxia, not hypoxia. You can have glutamate cascade and cell death. So why do they tell you to rest and not go right back out onto the field? They don't want to kill your brain in an area that's got an impaired flow temporarily, because you can recover if you take your time and you have a proper amount of therapy to gently reactivate this area. So again, ischemic change, you've got impaired function if you create a small demand, and you can do that with neurofeedback. 12 to 15 hertz is a neutral positive perfusion. Let's do a little bit of bad art about perfusion. Here's hyperperfusion and hypoperfusion. Lots of oxygen and glucose available, not much. The delta band is actually a positive perfusion. The theta and alpha band up to about 10 or 11 are significant hypoperfusion. At about 11, 12, it goes into a neutral positive. It's not 2 or 3 standard deviations increased. It's a neutral positive perfusion. At about 16, it goes up into hyperperfusion. So what we're trying to do is use this positive perfusion, but gentle, to train the brain in an area that has the ischemia. And that's going to end up opening up the blood vessel because it's a gentle activation. If you do beta training or gamma training, you'll overdo it and you could create cell death. It doesn't guarantee that you will, but there's a good chance you're going to overdo the activation in the area and not let the brain recover the way it could. So the gentle reactivation, again, at about 11 to about 16 cycles a second. This is generally the frequencies that are called the SMR band, sensory motor rhythm, which is a stabilizing rhythm within the brain. And it's also the faster edge of the alpha band. So sensory motor rhythm is in the central strip, fast alpha elsewhere, but that's the frequency that you train in order to open up the blood vessel. And again, a gentle positive perfusion ends up opening up the blood vessel. And the brain regulates its own blood supply. When a brain area goes active, the blood is shunted to that area to supply the nutrients and oxygen that's needed for that function. Anyway,